but it's always great to have you, Ed. How are you this morning?
Well, I'm fine, and of course that makes everything exciting when you get to try out new things and figure things out. And
Yeah.
we're along on the journey, so it's exciting for us too.
Does that ever happen to you guys in Congress at all, where you're trying some new stuff out and you say, oh, okay, let's see how it goes? Yeah.
Yeah, we often tell ourselves we're trying new stuff out, but it seems like Groundhog Day every day around here. We just keep doing the same things and telling ourselves it's something different, and then we come up with the same outcome, which is what I'm concerned we're about headed into right now. So
I want to get into some of that.
Talk about that.
Yeah, you and I, one of the things I want to do is I'm not even interested so much in the Republican, Democrat, even conservative, liberal, although that comes into play a lot of times. But I'm more interested in, you and I talked over breakfast not too long ago about how legislation is done. And maybe people don't want to see how the sausage is made or hear how the sausage is made sometimes because it's not always the greatest story. But President Trump getting ready to take over now as the President of the United States again come January 20th. And obviously he's got an agenda, and obviously there are bills that need to be passed. And I think one of the big questions has been, are you going to have one bill? Are you going to have two bills more? Where are we at right now in that whole thing? I'll let you tell the story about where we're going in that direction.
Yeah, well, the leadership in the House, and I say that because it's different from many members, but the leadership, and I would say the establishment, wants one big bill. And the reason that I think that they want one big bill is they don't think that people will vote for two bills if there's not enough of what we call sweeteners in the second bill. And people say, well, what are sweeteners? Well, the sweetener is the border. And so to do difficult things, leadership is contending that we must save the border for the second bill to force members to vote for things that they wouldn't normally want to swallow down that are unpalatable. What are those things? Well, those things are the savings or the cuts to federal program spending that members typically always campaign on wanting to get rid of, but that when it comes to voting for it, they won't do it. And so if you add the border to that, well, then they'd be kind of forced politically to vote in favor of actually reducing spending at the federal level. Now, I think the president can go either way. I had a conversation with him on Friday, and look, from his standpoint, he just wants the thing to get done. But as you know, Gary, oftentimes in Congress, we'll tell you things are going to get done, and they're going to get done by a certain time. The certain time, it ends up slipping and slipping and slipping. We never meet the deadline, so to speak. And what we thought was going to get done always gets modified to the point where, leadership walks out, members come out and say, well, that was the best deal we could get.
Yeah.
I'm of the mindset that we need to do this in two phases. And the reason this is one bill or two bills, it's under a thing called reconciliation. So your budget doesn't line up with your spending. So we're reconciling that like you reconcile your checkbook.
Right.
And in this Congress, we have at least likely two opportunities to do that. You have to pass a budget, Gary. That's the first thing. And so we didn't do that in the last fiscal year. So we could still do that right now and have that opportunity. And then, of course, the next fiscal year starts in September. So we could get two budgets this year, two chances for reconciliation. Why do we care about reconciliation? We care about that because if you do reconciliation in the Senate, it only requires 50 votes, which means Chuck Schumer can't get can't leverage his votes for horrible things for the country. There are a lot of restrictions with reconciliation, and that's one of the things that we have to be and are concerned about. But I think we should do two bills. We get border up front. We do some savings up front, do some energy things, and set the table for success. It gives the president immediate wins and pays for things that we need to do, like start deporting horrific criminals from our country, and sets us up for success further on down the line when we have to deal with the tax package. And I think the tax package is a sweetener enough. No Republican wants to be on record for raising people's taxes to the tune of about $4 trillion. Nobody wants to do that. So why can't we just vote on that on the merits of it? That's my position, and I'm going to keep working towards that position.
Congressman, as you look at this whole deportation thing, which is obviously part of the border bill and so forth, it's one of those things that people have talked about so far. You don't like the idea of moving people out of the country, and yet when it comes to people who have committed crimes, people are gangs and all those kind of things that are here illegally, it's time that it happens. As you hear the conversation right now among your colleagues, both Democrat and Republican in the House, how committed are they to doing this and seeing it through? Because obviously there's going to be things that are going to come up. I can see some of the visuals already that are going to be out there on the news when this all starts to happen, and there'll be, already people are talking about families and breaking up families and all that kind of thing. Your thoughts on that? Because it's a very, very tough subject to take on. There's no question about it.
Yeah, look, the people here in Congress are committed to it as long as, I hate to say it this way, but this is my view on it, they're committed to it as long as it's popular. But if it becomes, and likely when you said, like you said, likely when it becomes unpopular because news agencies and mainstream media start pillorying it, they're looking for the first deportation with the abuela, right? With the grandmother that came here. They're looking for those photo opportunities to cast, a pall over this whole operation and make it unpalatable. And once it becomes unpalatable, I predict that many, I don't know if most, but many of my colleagues will run for cover and not want to see it carried out. Now, the president is dead set on doing it one way or the other. He wants people that came to the country illegally to leave the country, and that's his plan. And so I think it's going to happen, but I don't know how long until popular sentiment erodes on the thing, and that's going to be what I think tells the tale. And of course, we only have a one-seat majority at this point, so that you can only lose one opinion on that whole thing if you're going to pass legislation. Which is why, Gary, one of the strong reasons and one of the main reasons why I believe we should do a two-step reconciliation package, get the border funding in place up front so that when the mainstream media decides it's no longer fun to do this stuff and Republicans get weak in the resolve, that Tom Homan has the money to continue the operation to get these criminal aliens out of our country.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think the idea is in these bills so many times we say, well, let's do this down the line. And then all of a sudden it gets forgotten about because put in the bottom of the burner and you say, oh, okay, well, we're not going to do it at all. And then we fade out. And I remember in 2016 when President Trump came in and he said, hey, we're going to take care of Obamacare. We're going to get that out of here. And, Obamacare is still there in the same form, basically. And the Republicans took a bath the next time around in 2018 in the primary, in the election, the off-year election, and people said in the exit polls, hey, you didn't do what you said you were going to do. And so it's so important now, no matter who you are, Republican or Democrat, that when you have a majority, even a slight one like this, that you do what you say you're going to do, right? And when people elected you, they elected you for a reason. I want to come back and talk to you more about that in our next segment, and to talk a little bit about the pluses and minuses of legislating. What are the hardest things to do? And maybe some of the big things you see coming up this year in 2025. Congressman Scott Perry from the 10th Congressional District with us here this morning on the Gary Sutton Show on WOYK. Back with more right after this. This is the Gary Sutton Show on WOYK, 98.9 FM and 1350 WOYK. And you can check out our website at 989WOYK.com. That's 989WOYK.com. We'll have a podcast up later on today, and one of our guests right now, Scott Perry, is our 10th Congressional Congressman from right here in the York area. And you can also text our show, 833-478-4729. Scott, I remember something I think Churchill said one time, and I'm probably paraphrasing a bit. He was asked about how bad democracy was, and he said, well, it's the worst form of government except for all the rest. We have a representative democracy. You're a big part of that because you've been a representative for some 12 years plus now. And what's working about our legislative ability right now in Congress, and what's not working so well from your particular vantage point?
Well, what I think I'm trying to figure out if I start on a high note or end on a high note. So to me, let's start out with the bad, so to speak. to me, what's not working is that the town and the government is still, in my opinion, run too much by the DC swamp, Washington interest, the interest of the lobbyists and the lobbyist class and the elitist class that thinks we're, the American people are a bunch of rubes, that they're too, they're just not sophisticated enough to know how to run their lives and make decisions for themselves. So that the lobbyist class here in Washington D.C. has to do it for them. I think that is a perennial issue around here. When you're in Washington D.C., you're in some of the richest counties in the country, regardless of how much the rest of the country is struggling. There's the real estate prices are out of sight here. Everybody's making a bunch of money. The money's pouring in because, if you don't pay your taxes, you go to jail. And of course, they find every single different way to collect money around here and spend it. And of course, what also is not working is that we're spending our country into bankruptcy. If you look at the recent bond filing by the Fed, 100 basis points is what it is, and the prices, the interest rates just keep going up, and we're at a point where it's difficult to sell our bonds. Nobody believes we're going to pay our debt, which is what I've been screaming about for a long time, and no one seems to care about that. That's what's not working in Washington D.C. What I think is working is that there has been an awakening, I think, across the country about what's happening in the federal government and the way things are going. And people are sick and tired of it. They're sick and tired of the elitist class. They're sick and tired of Washington not listening to them, but listening to, the establishment grifter and lobbyist class around Washington, D.C., and they want something done about it. And they demand it, and I think you see that even with every single headwind against him. Donald Trump was reelected, and I hope that this is an enduring situation where Americans are paying attention to what's happening at the government, their government. In December, our leadership around here tried to pass another omnibus spending bill, 1,500 pages, dropped in the middle of the night. Nobody has time to read. Same old thing, right?
Yeah,
Same old story around here. And then literally within hours, these two guys, one named Vivek Ramaswamy, the other one named Elon Musk, put it out on social media. And with hours, that effort was scuttled, and we had to go right back to the drawing table. I can tell you that I and many of my colleagues were screaming from the mountaintops in December about that, but no one heard it. But once these two individuals engaged the people that they reach out to on social media, America was galvanized against that bill. I think that is that sunlight, that transparency, that knowledge, and that awareness of what's going on is one of the benefits that we're receiving from social media and kind of the the last gasps of legacy media telling us what's good for us. We can figure it out. Just tell us what it is. We know it's good for us, but we got to know what it is. And people are becoming aware of what it is.
Yeah, we don't want to be sitting on the sidelines. I mean, Americans want to be involved in their government now. And I think, it reminds me probably what your mom told you and what my mom told me. Don't do something unless you do it in front of me. All right, well, yeah, I get it. So American people are saying, don't pass these kind of bills unless you pass it in front of us and we like it. Or at least we would understand the process here. And I think the idea that there's light being spread on this whole Doge idea of bringing accountability to the government is probably a good thing for Democrats and Republicans, I think.
Yeah, there are. That's an interesting facet of that it's a Republican idea, obviously, but the Democrats are coming along in many ways with at least an interest in participating in that. And maybe it's just, good election politics, but maybe it's really just sincerity. Gary, we actually don't need Doge, but maybe we do. When I say we don't need it, look, most of the people around here, Democrat, Republican, Independent, no matter where you are on the spectrum, we know where the money's going. We see it every day. It's just the will. We don't have this collective body doesn't have the will to do anything about it. And I think that's the biggest thing that this Doge thing with these two individuals and their social media profile and the outreach that they can do.
Right.
That's going to be the game changer. They're going to see the same things that many people around here know, but the American people are going to see them.
So maybe,
and that's going to, I think, make the difference. And it's going to be a forcing function on this place to quit spending Americans' hard-earned tax dollars on things that, A, we can't afford, B, we don't want, and C, are ineffective.
and maybe this is just a great way of handing the government back to we the people again, at least starting in that direction. And again, for both the Democrats, Republicans, liberals, and conservatives, all people here in the country. Scott, what do you see as the major issues coming up yet this year that are kind of looming out there right now that maybe we're not hearing a lot about at the moment in terms of legislation?
Well, look, I think you know some of them right off the top of your head. Securing our southern border and making sure we actually have a country that doesn't allow terrorists hell-bent on destroying us come in and walk among us, and murderers and so on and so forth, thousands of them, literally thousands of them. Securing the borders, one or two. The other one or two is the federal spending that makes every single thing that you buy cost more. Our citizens are crying out they can't afford their lives. Those are number one and two. With that, probably unleashing American energy. There's absolutely no reason that we shouldn't be doing better in this arena. You saw that President Biden just essentially said, no more offshore drilling to the tune of literally millions of square acres out in the continental shelf. All that does is hurt America and hurt American consumers. So those are probably the top three. But the other thing, too, is, Gary, ending the weaponization of federal agencies. I know you had a question out there about what the Second or the First Amendment means to you. And, the First Amendment is one of the things that makes America an exceptional country, that everybody gets to speak their mind, even if we don't really like their opinion. And the fact that government was involved in censorship, it really bothers people, as it should. And that's on the left and the right. We see this Jack Smith report, the weaponization of government just continues against political rivals. Those are things for other countries, not for America. So you're going to see a lot of move in that direction. And then, quite honestly, I think a different posture on foreign policy, where America is maybe not loved, but is respected among the other nations and is not taken for granted and made a joke of. You're seeing that with the peace talks in Gaza, in Doha right now over Gaza and Israel, shooting that with the rhetoric out of Ukraine. And quite honestly, you're going to see that out of the Far East with China, the Communist Party of China, and North Korea as well. And those are things that are attributed to, Donald Trump's leadership style and his past proven track record.
Congressman, it's been great having you on this morning. We're looking forward to talking to you all along the way about legislation and the issues of the day and how we have to deal with those as Americans, all of us as citizens. But thank you for taking the time to be with us this morning. Very best of luck in this new session. I look forward to talking to you again very, very soon, my friend.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. Good luck to you guys over there. Get all the kinks ironed out. Get it like the fine honed machine that we know Gary Sutton is. And we look forward to seeing you soon and talking to you soon. God bless you.
Thank you, Scott. Take care. God bless you as well.